This Thursday we celebrate historically and in our country a time where a group of immigrants from England came in and landed on the shores of the Americas and met with the native people. They went there, these pilgrims, and in their first year they had a really difficult time. It was tough living. And then came this time, this celebration of Thanksgiving, where they gathered with the native peoples and celebrated. These pilgrims celebrated that they were delivered from hunger by the good summer crops, that they were delivered from war by the graciousness of the Native American peoples, and that they were delivered from cold by building strong, sturdy houses. This was what we saw historically in this land, and this is what we will celebrate on Thursday. And though this is referred to in our nation as the first Thanksgiving, when we look into our scriptures, we see that Israel had a commanded first Thanksgiving as well. They had a commanded thanksgiving to God when they entered into a new land. This was the first Thanksgiving for God's people, entering the promised land. He said that when you go in as this Jewish nation, and you receive this land flowing in milk and honey, this land that is blessed, give thanks to God. Remember. And so this was the first of many, an annual remembrance, giving thanks for how God had delivered them. Delivered them from slavery in Egypt, and delivered them from all of these difficulties and trials getting across the desert, and finally arriving into the promised land, a land promised generations and generations before. What is described in this first ceremony is a celebration and a pattern for future celebrations. It's a response of knowing that everything they have comes from God and giving back to God from what they have. Now, this was a time where it was a primarily agricultural society. Primarily, goods and trades were done through barter. So at this time, it was very obvious that if God gave you the land, and your food grew in that land, and you ate the food from that land, it was a pretty easy jump to say, God gave this to me. And so, therefore, in a system that didn't use money nearly as much, it was giving back to God what God had given when they come forward to the priest with their first fruits, literal gifts of the land, sharing in the land's abundance. Now, who were they to share with? This offering, this Thanksgiving, was to be shared with the Levites and the aliens who reside among you. Well, what does that mean? In the Old Testament, land was given with a territory fairly permanent, always stayed with this particular family. So we have the 12 tribes of Israel. Actually, we have a couple of half tribes, but you get the picture. So they have this geographic land given to the family. It stays with the family. There are two people that do not get it. First, aliens only, foreigners. You may remember in the story of Ruth, she was gleaning behind, getting leftover scraps from Boaz's field. That's because she was a foreigner. Her family didn't have fields. So there's the foreigners that don't have fields to literally work and grow food. And then there is another group of people, the Levites. The Levites are the priests. They're the pastors. They don't have land. Why? If you are called to give all of your labor and work time in prayer and intercession to God, doing sacrifices and ministry work, that takes up all of your labor hours. So, they didn't have labor hours to work on farms. How did they get what they need? It comes in the form of these first fruits and offerings. See, when the community brought the first fruits and offerings up to be sacrificed or to be given to the Lord, there were parts that were ceremonially burned as a gift to the Lord, a pleasing aroma to the Lord, and then there were parts that fed the priest and their family. The priest and their family literally was dependent upon the faithfulness of the community. This is how those first Thanksgivings went. This is how the first offerings went. Now, as people of God, it's sometimes hard to see where our first fruits come from. Yes, we work and yes, we get a paycheck, but it's sometimes just enough removed that we forget that that job came from God. That paycheck came from God. And in fact, that is our first fruits. And yet, when we gather publicly and give thanksgiving to God and we give an offering, that is bringing our first fruits. So what comes with these first fruits? What are we doing with these first fruits? The same thing that the Israelites did. The offering comes, the community gives. One of the things that happens with the community giving is we go out and make a difference in the lives of people who need a difference made. We support ministries, including when the globe comes around today. I don't have a globe to... When the globe back there comes around today, the globes come around to support UMCOR. UMCOR is quite frequently the first on the ground in tragedy and the last ones to leave. The ones that stand there and care for people in the midst of fires and floods and tornadoes and all other concerns worldwide. This is our missions branch. This is what UMCOR does. And so when we give to our offerings, we're supporting things like UMCOR. We're supporting those in need. Just like when the aliens were supported with the first fruits. When we give to our offering, we are also supporting my labor. I don't have a full-time job elsewhere. This is my labor. That's what we're supporting. The ability for me to pray, to intercede, to go to bedsides, to go to hospitals, to prepare a sermon. This is similar to what they did in Israel. I don't know if anybody ever paralleled for you. Certainly we give offerings to the Lord. But I don't know if anybody paralleled for you where that came from historically. That's where it came from. And the other piece is that originally in Israel, they did have, when money became available, they did have a temple tax, and that was used to take care of the facilities, the building. We also use our offering for that. All of these biblical reasons. So that is the giving that came historically through the Bible. That was historically what happened with the gifts. And just like historically, the priests gave back portions of what they were given, I do too. The offering isn't exempt for people just because they are employed by the church. When these Jewish worshipers came and gave their first fruit, they came to remember. They remembered their deliverance, they remembered their dependence upon God, and they remembered their blessings. This is why we give. This is one of the situations that I want you to be in at Thanksgiving. Give thanks for the blessings that we have. Give thanks for what God has done. Give thanks for the ways that we have been freed. And to be real honest, I think we're kind of okay culturally in the thanks part. I hear a lot of thank yous. Some very sincere, some less sincere. But thanks we do fairly well. Thank you cards, thank you to one another. And even when we gather at Thanksgiving, frequently we go around the table and we say, what are you thankful for? Thanks we focus on quite a bit. Thanks we make sure to look at. But on Thursday, we're going to have a day where we focus on Thanksgiving, but really aim for the thanks. And then we're going to have Black Friday with all of the sales ads. I've already been checking out Kohl's. They're opening up early. We're going to have a time of a spending frenzy, let's be honest. And when you look at the kind of data that they consider on those sale days, they consider that it's about 50-50. One for them, one for me. One for them, one for me. 50-50 on what you buy on Black Friday as to whether it is a gift or something for you. Now, you will never hear me speak against a good sale. We have Black Friday, and even if you didn't get what you wanted, we have Cyber Monday, where all the sales start hitting the internet. But if we spend one day in thanks, 2 days at least in a spending frenzy, which again, for the right reasons at the right time. I don't miss a sale. But what about the giving component? What about giving? Did you know that somebody decided to impact giving through social media? In 2012 it began, and social media has its ups and its downs, but one of the things that came out of social media was Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. It's December 3rd this year, and it's a time to remember that yes, we did thanks on Thursday, yes, we've done a lot of spending, but don't forget the giving part. And so they go forth and they encourage people to have a wave of generosity that makes a difference in their world and their community. A wave of generosity that makes a push and an impact in a time of spending and says, okay, we are going to be people that change things through giving. True Thanksgiving means focusing on what God has gifted us in our talents and our abilities and using them as opportunities to give back to God, God's work, God's people for the common good. And that's one of the things that this secular movement, by the way, Giving Tuesday, does. It encourages people to not just focus on the thanks, but remember the giving also. So what can you do, either on Giving Tuesday or before or after? You can give your time, volunteering. You can give something back that makes a difference. I'm aware of all of the volunteer hours that happen at the food pantry here and the consistency, week after week, of people giving their time and what a difference it makes in the lives of people. Giving your time is a way to give back in honor of God. Think about what you can do to give back your time. You can give back by using your voice. One of the things that warmed my heart deeply was when Babe Bluffs was in a situation where their financing was going to be impacted. And I heard from the people in this church that wrote letters and contacted people and said, oh no, that place is ours and it's valuable and it's important. They gave their voice to something that they believed in. They gave their voice to a place that housed and loved and continues to people right from these pews into that community. That is giving your voice, and it is a valuable offering to God. You can give your dollars. Many nonprofits are working hard to hold together financial budgets that are tight, and many good works are done through dollars. For me this year, I am well aware of how blessed and gifted I have been. In a 21-month period, I finished seminary, started and finished seminary. This is a $60,000 degree. 100% of it was paid through scholarships. All of my degree, plus enough to send my family with me for the immersion trip to Israel, all through scholarships. Do you know what a blessing those dollars are? So guess where I'm giving to on Giving Tuesday? I'm giving to the United Methodist Foundation of Michigan, who funded the bulk majority of my education. And then one of the leaders of that organization said, you know, I'm on the board of United Theological Seminary, and I'm allowed to give one scholarship a year to one student. Come to the seminary, I'll give you my scholarship. That plus other dollars I'll be giving back to the United Theological Seminary as well, because I don't forget what has made a difference in my life. When you give back time, money, whatever you give back, remember what has made a difference in your life and choose to be a legacy to make a difference in others' lives. We can give back goods. Physical goods, like the basket that we collect for the food pantry out here, physical goods can be given back. In Alanson, we have the Church of the Nazarene that takes clothing and gives it to community members. And you know, that week of Giving Tuesday, I'll be going through my closet and going through my kids' closets, because frequently I put a bag on their back porch there. And one of the days that gave me the greatest joy was when I was up at the school visiting in Lansing, and I turned, it was dark and it was early, and I turned real quick because I thought, what's Katie doing here? It wasn't Katie, it was Katie's coat, her warm winter coat on a kid headed into school. This is important work to give back to. We can also give kindness. Think of all of the people that have sat in these pews over the years and taught Sunday school downstairs and made ministry differences in your life, and their legacy that lives on. Though they may not be here, their legacy stands because of the kindness that they did in your life. In the name of Jesus, you can share your talents. I know some people don't realize that they are as talented as they are, but trust me, there are things you do that no one does. Give those talents and share them. Marga, this morning I tried not to embarrass her. I didn't use her name. I just said, a cellist, as Marga sat behind me holding her cello. So a cellist has been known to give her time going out to the schools and teaching her talent to young students who are trying to learn, to continue that talent. That's what you do to give back, to change the next generation. That's not just living in thanks, which is beautiful, but living in giving as well, sharing your talent, giving inspiration to others to share theirs, living your Christian life largely enough and open enough that others see you when you struggle, and others see you when you succeed, and others see that you walk with the Lord no matter what that looks like, failures or successes. That gives inspiration, and it makes a difference. And we are to share why we give. We give because we are thankful that God has done so much for us, so much, and we want to give back and make a difference in others' lives. As followers of God, we give back because God gives. So this year, I encourage you at this time of Thanksgiving to not just focus on thanks, but also give. Give of your time, give of your talent, give of your financial treasure, give. Give your first fruits back to God. This is how we make a difference, and this is how we make a testimony. By spending our week, as the Israelites did at that first Thanksgiving, by focusing on yes, thanks, and yes, giving. May we do so. Amen.